All right, welcome back. So, um, perhaps before I start, this is how I look after I shaved. So don't be surprised, okay? So yeah, let's just get right into it, okay? So in this video, we're gonna be talking about data cleaning, and yeah, data cleaning consists of several ways of doing it, like removing irrelevant data, removing duplicate data, type conversion, syntax error, and feature scaling, right? Okay, let's just start from removing irrelevant data. So, what do I mean by removing irrelevant data, right? So, essentially, irrelevant data are those that are not actually needed and don't fit under the context of the problem we're trying to solve, right? So, for example, we talk about COVID-19 pandemic data stuff analysis, right? Um, like general health of the population and stuff like that. And whenever we talk about the health itself, right? So the context is about like health, right? COVID-19 pandemic, right? So I suppose the phone number wouldn't be necessary, right? But sometimes it's there, in the data because you probably need to get it from like the patients, right? So you would have that column, you would have that feature, and that's an example of data that is not relevant. So you can actually remove that. You can remove that specific column, that phone number column, right? The phone number feature. And similarly, like for example, if you're only interested in, let's say, a particular area, right? Like for example, the COVID-19 pandemic data contains a feature specifically stating where the row or the data is actually recorded in. Like for example, a country, right? Like perhaps this one data comes from Indonesia and this one data comes from Taiwan or Japan or just any other country out there. And you're probably just interested in the COVID-19 pandemic in, let's say, Japan, right? So you don't want to include any other country, and or you only want to study those patients who are living in that particular country, right? So you can actually remove other rows, like other um, data of patients that live in that area. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So yeah, so you can actually remove like column wise or row wise, right? Okay. Uh, so, but perhaps a bit of a tip: make sure that you know that piece of data is unimportant when you drop it, because yeah, you may actually need it. So, um, feature analysis is very important, I suppose. Yeah, and perhaps before doing anything column specific dropping, you may want to do like correlation matrix between the features, between the columns. Yeah. And then even though you notice perhaps like no correlation, you should probably ask someone who is actually a domain expert. Like for example, with the COVID-19 data, you should probably ask someone who's literate, right, in the domain, or perhaps the business setting, right? Like you probably want to ask someone who's an entrepreneur, because sometimes the feature may seem irrelevant, but it could be very relevant from a domain perspective, right? So yeah. And then next up, we have removing duplicate data, right? Okay, so sometimes duplicate data points are present, right? So data points are repeated in the data set. Sometimes it happens because, the data comes from like combined sources. So it does happen sometimes. Sometimes the user may hit like for example, if you collect data from a website, right? A user may hit a button twice, thinking like the button doesn't submit, the form doesn't actually submit. So yeah, that could be a possible source of a duplicate. And like another example would be a request, right, to book something online that is submitted twice, correcting the wrong information that was entered accidentally the first time. So like for example, you misspelled your name the first time you submitted the thing, and then you realize, oh, I mistyped my name, and you try to submit the second time, trying to correct your name. So that could also be a possibility, right? So yeah, that kind of data should be removed. And I have to say, with a large amount of data, um, it's very hard, definitely. Especially like, for example, the last example, where you submit like a different data, and I suppose this is why CRUD is important. Like, instead of just submitting, you can actually edit the data. So yeah, because it's easier for us as well if such thing happen, you know. So yeah. And then next up, we have type conversion. Okay, so um, in type conversion, we essentially try to make sure that uh, all the data type are, all the data are, set in the right data type, So make sure numbers are stored as numerical data types, right? So we might not want to store the numbers as strings, although this case may differ. And this is very case specific, right? And yeah, a date should be stored as a date object, for example, right? And then we can also talk about like how categorical values can be converted into and from numbers if needed, and it's called encoding, right? And we're gonna talk about encoding later, because it's a whole specific domain, right? But perhaps I will explain a bit about why you may want to convert categorical data into numerical data, right? Like why you would want to encode the categorical data into numerical data, because some machine learning algorithms cannot operate on label data directly, right? They require all inputs to be variables and output variables, all input variables and output variables to be numeric. Okay, so like for example, some implementations of machine learning algorithms require all data to be numerical, right? Like scikit-learn, for example, yeah, scikit-learn has this requirement, um, for all the data to be numerical, right? And yeah, so and for example, like if the for example in the breast cancer detection implementation that we're going to do later on, the output variable is actually a categorical variable. So you may want to encode that prediction to numbers, and then perhaps when you're done with everything, right? You're done with your modeling, you're done with like you found the most efficient, no, like the best performing model, right? And you want to present um, your results, you can actually convert back the thing the categorical data from numerical to categorical, right? So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Next up, we have syntax errors. So this is a very important part of data cleaning. The first one would be removing white spaces, right? Like for example, I'll just give an example right here. So let's just say we have spaces here and then hello world, and then spaces here and there. There we go. So we have the string, right? So we have three spaces first, and then hello world, and then three spaces after. And you might want to clean the data in such a way that you don't have such white spaces, right? Like here, because especially if you're doing text mining stuff, you may want to avoid that, because uh, it does tinker with how, like for example, in text mining we have what we call like converting, like I forgot what it's called, but essentially, for example, the word walking is actually turned it gets actually converted into the word walk, like the original form of the word. And I'm pretty sure like that will tinker with everything. And for example, in text mining as well, when you try to uh, like pre-process a sentence, right? So the sentence itself will be broken down into specific words, like one word in each. Like for example, "Hello world" is a sentence consisting of two words, and but as a string, it stands on its own as one string, right? And what we do essentially, we want to separate them into just words. So the word hello and the word world, right? So yeah. But enough of that. I suppose we'll just focus on this, all right? So we have the syntax error thing, and removing white spaces is necessary. So, and then for example, pad strings. Um, Strings can be padded with spaces or other characters to a certain width. Like for example, some numerical code. Like for example, you may want to, like for example, the data is like this, right? You have an integer, um, like 420, and essentially, so in the data, it's in the column itself, you may want to standardize like all the figures. Like for example, the highest digit in the string is a 5-digit number, like, and then you have a 3-digit number, right? So you may want to, uh, you know, add like zeros, prepending zeros, like before the 420, right? Like for example, like this, you turn this. Wait, sorry.